Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Socratic Satsang. Our guest today is a man of many, many talents and many, many achievements. He started with a Bachelor of Engineering, went on to do his MBA from Cranfield University UK, then his MSc in Public Policy from the London School of Economics. He was Director of Police in the Ministry of Home Affairs, currently co-founded a tech startup, authored a fantastic book called Converging Paths, which we'll be discussing with him today. I've personally known him for 18 years, and I like to call him a scientist sage. Welcome, Prashant Nikam.
Thank you, Captain, and thank you, Kirsten.
Absolutely. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Yeah. Excited to get into this. So, after all these achievements that you have, all these feathers in your cap, what inspired you to write this book at this point in your life?
Yes. Uh, Thank you for that question. I think what inspired me was a trigger caused by an health emergency. I had sort of a longish period of health crisis, and I thought, how best can I utilize my time while I was on the bed? And so I thought, why not pen down whatever I have read about, thought about uh, this topic, this theme on spirituality and science. And so I thought this would be the best way I could utilize my time. And that's how the book was born, I think. The suffering led to the book.
Yeah. In fact, I had that question that you said the book was born out of suffering, but thank you for answering that. And one of the themes you seem to explore in the book is the purpose of life. What, according to you, is the purpose of life?
Yes. The purpose of life, I think, is to try and decipher, decode, and unravel the meaning of life that you have you have been born to discover and live your life with. So for me, I think it was exploring, exploring various facets of life, whether in terms of different streams of knowledge, exploring different streams of wisdom traditions, and I think the sheer joy in exploring, I think, was somehow, uh, in hindsight, I believe, was the purpose of my life. There was no agenda I was living with. I didn't have a goal or agenda while I was doing what I was doing. So I think the goal was in the exploration itself. So I think that was, I believe, the purpose of my life. And I'm happy I've come a long way in my life. And yeah, I believe that was the
Thank you.
purpose of my life.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So you talked about having this health issue, which kind of sidelined you for a time. And it sounds to me like kind of took away from some of the busyness of life. And something that you write about in the book is silence. And I want to explore that with you a little further. One of the quotes in your book is listen for the silence between sounds. And I'm curious what you have personally discovered in silence and how that has evolved for you over time.
Yeah. So the health issue I faced was a fracture in my spine, so which led me completely unfit to move around. So I was on the bed for quite some time, and so when you are unable to move, your mind moves a lot. Your thoughts move a lot, and I think when your thoughts are in high motion, I think it is unproductive kind of activity because you're expending a lot of energy, but you're not deriving any insight. And so the only way you can derive insight is to focus on the gaps between different thoughts. And the gaps between different thoughts is a silence that you have to search for. And I think I have been practicing meditation for a few years now. And I believe that practice of meditation perhaps helped me hold on to these bits of pauses between thoughts and then extend that time period to gain better insight about life itself. And the book is about science and spirituality. Right? I was happy to learn that it is this silence between the thoughts that is also being captured by the neuroscientists. So that when the mind is full of thoughts, random thoughts, uh, it's called you would know better, Kirsten. It's called default mode network, where there isn't much. I mean, there's a lot of activity, but there isn't much gain out of the activity. So it's only when you're able to sort of slow down your mind, your thoughts, and if you bring down the DMN, the default mode network activity down, that's when true insight develops. So I had learned about this, but I got a chance to actually practice that in my own life while I was in the bed.
Wow. Wow. You know, we both loved your book. It's deep. It makes one reflect as one reads. And we're waiting to jump into each part of the book. But before we jump into the book, you mentioned fracturing your spine, which is what triggered your thought process and the book and everything else. What caused that fracture? And yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
It was a freak accident. I wish I had more story to tell you and what it was. It was just a freak accident. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't driving drunk. I wasn't on drugs. I did nothing wrong, and that's why, you probe your life more, because when you have done nothing to deserve what you got, then you sort of probe life in a deeper way, because you are seeking that answer. You're seeking that closure. So it was just a freak accident. I fell down in a very inappropriate manner, fell straight on my spine, and it was a fracture. And and that's it. I wish there was more kind of if I could find some more reasons why it happened. It just happened, and I think it happened for a reason, and the reason perhaps was something that wasn't caused by me, my doing or misdoing. Perhaps there was a higher purpose in my falling down. And so when I wrote the book, I felt, aha, maybe this was the higher purpose. Maybe this was what had to come out. Uh, and so that's it. It was just a freak accident.
Mhm.
Nothing more to that.
It's fantastic that you mentioned that there was no real trigger that caused it, and yet you feel there was a purpose to it. And in your book, you talk about karma. So, two questions for you. One is, what, according to you, is karma? Second is, what do you think karmically led to the fracture?
Yes. What led to the fracture karmically, I think I haven't understood yet. Maybe it'll take some more years to understand that. But yeah, karma in simple words, from what I've understood, is the blueprint of your life so far. As in the Indian wisdom tradition, we believe that we are born multiple times. We carry on the baggage of the past in each successive birth. And so karma is what you have acquired in terms of your previous baggages and what you set out to do in this particular baggage, in this particular lifetime. And so and I think it also sort of ties in very beautifully with science. The study of epigenetics, it mirrors perfectly with karma. So epigenetics says that you carry your ancestral, you know, triggers of thoughts, your impressions and turmoil, for successive generations. So there was a study carried out on mice. For 7 generations of mice, the trauma which that mice had experienced was carried on in their DNA for 7 generations. So it is something similar to karma, that I would say. But the good thing, the happy news of this is you can reverse it in your current birth. So while you have to go through what you have to go through, you have a chance to undo the damage. You have a chance to uh, erase the past trauma, the past memories, and so your future can be more, I think, glorious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. I was thinking about how this book has been born of suffering. And it's, of course, this is an unintentional suffering. And just when you were touching on neuroscience, so I'm going to bring it to less of the unintentional suffering to start. There's right now a big book out called Dopamine Nation. And something that it talks about really is bringing how the brain is really meant for motivation and survival rather than seeking pleasure. And so we will have these periods of kind of dopamine seeking, going out, trying to get as much pleasure as possible, whether that's on our phones, games, and there can be lots of different ways. And then how there's a down regulation in those dopamine receptors, which actually creates kind of a numbness to joy. And part of what is recommended is kind of choosing to do the hard thing, to allow kind of a natural joy, kind of to bring, so the body, the brain kind of naturally rebalances. Um, and I'm curious, from kind of a contemplative perspective, this feels very similar to a lot of the spiritual teachings that emphasize discipline, silence, kind of a voluntary simplicity. And I'm curious how you see this overlap between neuroscience and spiritual traditions. And you see choosing that harder path as a way of creating the conditions for awareness and meaning.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very deep question. And so my life, I think, has been, fortunately or unfortunately, seeking the more difficult path wherever I had an opportunity, and choosing voluntarily a more difficult path without knowing the benefits of that. So I didn't do it with the knowledge of it's going to help me somewhere in life. At that juncture, it was just, I think, that the motivation was exploration. Actually, without agenda, without purpose, is exploration. So eventually, it may have helped me in my life, and my life is still, I think, some years to go. So I don't know. Maybe it will help me a lot more after 10 more years, 20 more years. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it does make you think deeper about your life, about the world around you. So, and there's also a study, I think, for neuroscience. There's a part of your brain. I forget what the name of that. It's a very complicated name, uh, which actually develops more if you go through more difficulties, and which actually contracts if you have a easy life. Anterior, I forget the name. I'll come back to it. There's a part of brain which actually expands as you face more difficulty. So I believe that part must have been really become big in my case, because I have voluntarily taken a lot of difficulty. But going to spiritual tradition, what I have understood is seeking dopamine, no, seeking pleasure and seeking pain, both are unnatural. The correct state of being is, in Indian tradition, we call it in English is called bliss. In Indian tradition, we call it anand. So you're neither excited about something good nor you're unhappy about something bad. If you can be in that state where you're witnessing both the states of mind or the states of consciousness, that is the most that is the state of being which is sustainable. Because even if you're very happy, it's not sustainable. And if you're very sad, even that is not sustainable, right? You have to come in a center. So I think spiritual seekers are the ones, you not see them getting excited about everything or feeling sad about everything. In fact, if you find a seeker, a spiritual master who behaves very excitedly, or he looks very sad for certain reasons, somehow you don't feel that he's spiritually accomplished enough. You would expect that he should be he should be sitting in a center center
True.
of this vortex of life where he's witnessing everything. And that is an Indian tradition. It's called Satchit Anand, or the bliss state.
So
I haven't
can I
been
And I
there.
would
ask you?
say
Yeah,
in,
go ahead.
sorry, and I would just say in, yeah, kind of like the mindfulness practice, it's being that non-judgmental observer, right?
Yeah.
Kind of just watching what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where in this do goals fit in? Because for me, as personally, I have never looked at whether a path is difficult or easy. I set goals, whether it's spiritual goals, financial goals, health goals, family goals. I set goals and I work towards them. Sometimes the path is easy, sometimes it's not. It just doesn't matter. What matters is whether I'm working in the right direction within the principles and the values that I set for myself. So, how does that fit into what you just said?
Well, I would say you're extremely lucky, Captain. If you have been able to set goals and pursue your goals, it means you are a believer of free will, right? And
I
uh,
am. That's true. I am.
yeah, and in the spiritual tradition, that is a big debate whether there's free will or there's God's will or the universe's will. Nobody's sure about that.
I
Uh,
think there was some study done on this, and it was shown that 97% of our lives are just reactions. So the concept of free will scientifically is almost zero. It's down to 3%. But I just like to set an agenda and then work towards it no matter what it takes.
yeah. And have you been able to sort of pursue successfully?
See, some of the goals I set are short term, some mid term, some long term, but the agenda, the objective is
If
always
you
get
draw
to
a
the goal.
graph between your goals you set and you achieved, is it a good match?
I have had failures, several failures. I've made mistakes. Some goals have changed before I achieved them. I realized that the goal is not relevant anymore. But if I have to average, I'd say I have an over 90% achievement rate.
You're lucky, because my my record has been dismal. I When I was a youngster, I had a lot of goals, and I think I pretty much achieved the goals because I realized they were very small goals to achieve, right? And so life was linear. But the moment you get into a territory of life where complexity sets in, chaos sets in, then life becomes non-linear. And I have understood that a lot of things I aspired for, I didn't get it. And a lot of things I got, I hadn't even imagined that I would get that. So,
I wonder if that's your humility talking, brother, because your resume, your profile is one of a hyper successful person. London School of Economics, director of police. These are huge achievements, and I can't imagine that everything just fell into your lap. I think even getting well from a fractured back, writing a book, these are all goals which you've clearly worked towards achieving. Clearly. So are you just being super humble right now?
no, I'm
I
just being
think,
realistic. I think they are goals. If you look at life in hindsight, when it
yeah.
happened, I thought things happened to me. I didn't seek them out. And I think if I would have tried to sort of, list down my goals and pursue the goals, I wouldn't have done any of that, because everything I did seemed like a mistake. I did my MBA in the worst possible time in the UK economic history, I think,
Okay.
during the subprime crisis. I
Oh,
could not have been able to do it had I thought rationally. Things happened. I just found myself in the middle of that crisis, and I found a way around it. And so and that's why I feel that I don't feel fatigued, because anybody who has done so much would probably feel fatigued, right? Because if he has pursued it, there will be a sense of fatigue. I don't feel that. And because I don't feel that, I know it wasn't me. It was maybe some higher force that was pushing me, and I just tried to be sort of. I was gliding my way through. I wasn't flapping my wings,
yeah.
so I think that's what I feel about my life. But you're
Okay.
lucky, Captain. I think anybody who can live a life with free will, with at least the illusion of free will, I think is
Yeah.
blessed. Is blessed.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, even I think I'm pretty lucky in life. Have to be lucky to get a partner like that.
Aw.
Yeah. But I'm sure that wasn't part of free will. That was a blessing you got.
Yeah, that's true. Most of our relationship is decided by her. In the marriage, my free will is definitely limited, but I'm not complaining. I like what she does.
Um, yeah, I think I've been a very goal-oriented person myself, and that's been something since really young. Anything that I was, wherever I had the desire, I was very set on it, and you would call me stubborn. I would say strong-willed. We have a difference in perspective on that. But then sometimes, I also look back and think there was so much actually suffering through that process as well. Feeling like everything had to be perfect, had to meet all these, these goals, these grades, all, so forth, and just putting so much pressure on. Um, and so, yeah, I'm curious to hear a little bit about your perspective on that in terms of, are those goals, is it an undue pressure that we're putting on ourselves, or is that part of kind of like why we're here and part of our purpose?
I wonder, I'm just adding to what she said. I wonder because, being autistic, I love to know what I'm doing. Otherwise, as a coach, as a management coach for 3.5 decades now, I always say set goals, set your values, know your guidelines, your guardrails, set goals and work towards them. Otherwise, you're like a pilot who takes off in the aircraft and then you say, where do I go? So I think goals are super important. And the obstacles that come in your path are part of your muscle building. Someone said to us on the podcast recently, and I quoted this in the previous episode also, Amber Hollingsworth, a addiction specialist. She said, if you are to climb a mountain, by the time you get to the top, you would have built muscle. It's just natural. You can't get to the top without building muscle. I mean, we've set goals for ourselves and we faced huge obstacles. But then every time an obstacle comes, we figure it out. We figure it out and then we get past it. And I'm wondering, Buddhism talks a lot about suffering. So, have you been reading Buddhism? Are you Buddhist, by the way? What's the role of suffering in all of this?
So just to come back to that goal, theory of goal. See, I think we have to pretend that we have to pursue goals. I mean, this is what I believe. We have to pretend. Suffering is the divergence between your goal and what you actually achieve. So if every goal I had, if I achieve that goal, then where is suffering? There's no suffering, right? Because we'll all want to have goals like happy life, happy family, a lot of money, no pain, perfect health, isn't it? That would be everybody's goal. Then would there be suffering at all in the world? So our rational minds would set goals, but reality strikes, and then there's always the divergence between what you actually end up doing and what you actually had set up doing. Right? And that difference is something that causes suffering. So the fact that I have brooded so much about suffering, it means there has been a huge divergence in my life on what I thought I should be doing and what I actually did. And so suffering came as a natural progression of life. And when you undergo suffering, I think that's a time where, for the first time in life, you are drawn inwards. Because normally you always seek solutions outside of you, because that's what we have been conditioned to do, right? We are conditioned to talk to elders, talk to siblings, talk to counselors, talk to the experts. They're all outside of you. But when you start going inwards, that's when the real journey starts. And because the answers are not coming from the outside, so you have no choice but to go inwards. So when you go inwards and you get drawn into the contemplative traditions that have sort of flowered in India, Buddhism being one. I didn't get to Buddhism immediately. I started with Osho. So that was the first port of call. And through Osho's understanding of life and the way he could explain, and when he explained about Buddhism, that's when I got interested. And then I sort of delved deeper into Buddhism. Now, from what I've understood, there are few things in life that are certain. Death is certain. And before death, suffering is certain. I don't think any human being can realistically say that he hasn't suffered. Whether he has goals or no goals, suffering is going to come, because in his mind, he's going to create some goals and not meet them. And so the entire literature of Buddhism focuses on elevation of suffering. They don't talk about anything else but elevation of suffering. So that obviously becomes sort of the go-to, spiritual tradition, because you don't want to continue your life feeling that you're undergoing suffering for too long a time. And so that became sort of the obvious thing to go into. And the beauty of Buddhism is, the deeper you go, you realize that your understanding of other traditions has also improved. Because then you get a comparator, you're able to sort of see things in prudential light. So I felt that my understanding of other wisdom tradition has also improved. And I think suffering got mitigated out of seeking. Nothing happened in my life that suddenly suffering went away. But suffering is what you feel about yourself. So when I immerse myself in studying the wisdom traditions, suffering magically got mitigated, because suddenly you're thinking of something more than you. You're no longer focused on obsessing about your own self. You're looking at something bigger than you. And I think that is the start of the mitigation of suffering. So sorry, it's a very long answer. I hope I've answered, but yeah.
Yeah,
So I was
you
drawn to it.
have, but you've also raised a couple of questions in my head. Personally, I just I use the word challenges. When I set a goal, there are challenges that come in between, and those challenges mean sacrifices. It means waiting. It means building patience. But I figure my way out. And as a Hindu and devotee of Shiva, uh, meditation, seeking inward, is something that's just part of the process. That's how things have worked for me so far. I is What do you see as the difference between the word challenges and suffering? I believe it's a paradigm difference. Like when I'm going through some obstacle that I'm negotiating, it could be a health obstacle, it could be a material obstacle. I just view it as, okay, this is the challenge. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do what it takes to get over it, get right through it. I don't view it as, oh, I'm suffering and this is suffering of life. Somehow I find that a much more depressing and a demotivating way of looking at it. Whereas when I look at it as just this is the challenge, this is what I've got to do, this is what I've got to go through, it doesn't seem to demotivate to that extent. Do you see a difference between the word challenge and
Yeah,
suffering?
yeah, I do see. And the beauty of this is, we all build up our perspectives based on what you have been exposed to. So, in my understanding, challenges is a fancy word of saying obstacles, right? So, there are obstacles, we call them challenges. Now, what is suffering then? Suffering is trying to understand why the obstacles are coming my way repeatedly. One, why the obstacles are so much bigger than I deserved in the first place, right? So when you're trying to find the why, the answers of that process, I call it suffering. Uh, Negotiating obstacles, negotiating challenges, it's okay. As long as your rational mind is able to decipher and understand that these are normal obstacles in life. But when something is beyond normal in your perspective, in your perception, then you tend to seek the deeper reasons, because just calling them challenges, if it satisfies your mind, great. Unfortunately, it didn't satisfy my mind because for me, I felt that one, the the question that comes to everybody is why me, you know, and because we all believe we don't deserve so much of suffering or so many of challenges or so many of obstacles. We all believe that. So you start questioning why me.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts that have come up, a question from before, but also I'm just thinking in terms of kind of pain versus suffering. Um, and, pain being more of an acute experience that, it happens. It could be, it could be an accident, it could be a betrayal, it could be a loss, and it happens in that moment, right? And then that moment is over, but we're still suffering because of our relationship to that pain. And so um, I'm just kind of thinking about that and thinking actually recently of a loss that we experienced. And um, for almost a year, just suffering in relationship to that loss. And then having a point of kind of just of letting go and being able to accept things, as they are, and to move forward, and how there was this release of suffering when that happened. So I'm curious to hear too, yeah, kind of from you and what you would see in that component of where does letting go from, how does that relate to all of this?
Yeah. So I think you have articulated perfectly. Pain is in the moment, right? It's in the present moment. Suffering is either you revisit the past or you are anxious about the future, right? So that's why suffering is optional. Suffering is optional. Suffering is not something that you have to do. But our minds are wired in a way that we are not always in the moment, right? We are more in the past or more in the future. So when you suffer, then you sort of try and understand the reasons for suffering. And then you come to the point in life where you start living in the moment. So if anybody, and that is a spiritual evolution. If you can live in the moment, then where's suffering? Then there'll be pain, of course, there'll be momentary pain, but there won't be suffering, right? So maybe this is a journey. It's like you sort of, you start with suffering and then you go over this huge pile of thoughts where you try and understand what is leading to suffering, and then you come to a point in time that, oh, it's just my poor response to this. Maybe I can change the response, and things will change forever. The suffering will get mitigated. So, but it's a process. Eventually, what you will do is you will try to be in the present moment by meditating, because we are not naturally wired towards being in the moment. It's difficult to sit even for 60 seconds in the moment. you have to work towards it, right? So I think the journey starts with the sense of suffering, and maybe bliss is when you are able to live in the moment, each moment in time, and so then you're rid of suffering.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful point, that we are oftentimes living in the past or the future rather than right now, right here in this moment. Yeah, agree with you. Something else that you talked about is this: you've sought truth through multiple traditions, and this is something that I really appreciate about you and your work. It's something that I really resonate with in my own path. Um, I was raised Christian. I had very powerful, beautiful experiences in that tradition. Did a lot of seeking. When I met my husband, we had these deep spiritual conversations, and his response to me was, "You're Hindu," and then a book that I really have loved is Autobiography of a Yogi, which it really just bridges the traditions, and I find it really beautiful and inspirational. So I'm curious for you how engaging with different traditions has kind of shaped your understanding of truth, and how having reverence for multiple pathways, how you can hold that without diluting the depth of each one.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question, Kirsten. So I think from what I have understood, there's one peak, there's one truth, but there are many paths to reach the truth. And so even in the Indian tradition, we have different paths laid out: the path of meditation, the path of knowledge, the path of bhakti. Bhakti is devotion. So the various paths laid out. And I think since each one of us are unique, I think each one of us will sort of know which path works best for that person. In my case, I was born confused. So I had to really understand what works for me. And so I tried to sort of understand whatever I could understand, different paths. Luckily for us, luckily we are in that time and age, where access to knowledge is fully available to us. Had we been born 1,000 years or 2,000 years back, perhaps the kind of access to knowledge would not have been there. So you would have to be dependent on a particular teacher, a guru you may have to sort of work with. But luckily, I think we are in this time and age where knowledge is not the problem. Access to knowledge is not a problem. So there's an ocean out there. Swim as much as you want to swim, right? And so it's a very exciting time to be born into. And so I try to look at different traditions. So from what I've understood, I feel there are two broad streams of knowledge traditions. One is called uh, duality or dualistic, Dvait, and one is called non-dualistic or Advait. Right? Um so there are two very different ways of uh, how, and I believe I'm still learning. I told you, a seeker is a seeker. He keeps learning each day. I feel perhaps you can either be a non-dualist or a dualist. Might not be able to do both. One might not be able to do both, right? So I feel I am perhaps closer to being a non-dualist, but I'm still searching, so I do not know. But so to put it in simple words, a non-dualist thinks that he a conscious being. He's a conscious being, and he is part of this conscious world, a conscious universe, and so he is a participant in the conscious universe, right? While a dualist believes that there is a world out there, and there's this person, and uh, he is a recipient of the grace. He doesn't participate, but he receives from another source. He doesn't co-create. So one is sort of a co-creation, kind of a participatory universe theory, and one is a fixed universe, perhaps, and trying to understand what the laws of the universe are, and trying to find your way in this universe, where you're not participating, but you're trying to best understand and living your life accordingly. So I feel these are two broad streams. Um, I perhaps think I'm closer to non-dualist, Advait. So Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Advait tradition is non-dualist, while other traditions are more in the dualist tradition. So there's a creator and there's creation. Right? While in the non-dualist, we see the creation and the creator are intertwined. Uh, it's like the dance. The dancer and the dance come together. So long as dancer is dancing, they're together.
Should we take another direction?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's something in your book that I've been eager to explore with you. And that I believe I think it's heart chakra. It's that you were referring to, and it was the statement that emptiness is form and form is emptiness. I think that's correct, somewhere along those lines.
Yeah.
So this struck me, and in some of our time meditating, I spent some time kind of just contemplating that. And as far as I was able to get was, we're built of atoms, and atoms are mostly empty space, which means, okay, am I mostly empty space? And I'm also form. And that's as far as I got. So
Yes.
I want to hear more from you about
Yes.
your experience with this and what you've learned as you've kind of contemplated this idea.
So form is emptiness. Emptiness is form is part of the Heart Sutra of Buddhism. And so even in science, as you rightly said, alluded, that we thought that we are made up of atoms, that is the smallest indivisible part of material, right? But when they went deeper into atoms, they found, oh no, there's something more. When they went deeper into that, they can found something more. And now we say, so when I grew up, I was taught that everything is made up of matter. And now you see the books, it says everything's made up of energy. Because when they kept trying to go deeper and deeper, trying to break the particles more and more, and they still can't find the smallest indivisible particle yet. So they have come to conclusion that yeah, it's energy, and matter is energy that is slowed down. So slow moving energy is matter, and normal energy is energy. So yeah, so science says that emptiness is form and form is emptiness. And even quantum physics now, there's something called quantum vacuum. So quantum vacuums is, so we felt that we can create a vacuum where we take all the matter out of that. And they realize that even after doing that, there still remains um, almost infinite energy, which they call 0 point energy, which is made up of infinite energy where virtual particles come and go, virtual particles. So it is vacuum, but it's called quantum vacuum because it is infinite energy and virtual particles keep coming in, popping up, popping down, right? So so this is what empty space really is. Empty space is quantum vacuum, full of energy. Now that is science, right? And so everything that emanates, any form that comes out from quantum vacuum, right? So emptiness can become form, and form after it decays goes back into emptiness, right? So I mean, if you look at the scientific aspect, simpler to understand is this. But when Buddha said that in the heart chakra, he said from a bit different perspective, and this was take a little longer. But if you wish, I can try and
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Take your time.
Yeah,
We have
so,
all the time for you.
So the radical change in Buddhism theory was the concept of no self or no soul or no atma. Right? So Christians believe there's a soul, right, which God's gives to you. Hinduism believes that there's an atma, right? Buddhism has came with a radical theory saying there's no soul, there's no Atma. And so he says there's a concept of no self. There's nothing. And Atma means there is a permanent self which remains even before the person is born or after he dies. Right? This is what we believe. Right? That there is a permanent uh, identity or self that is there forever. And so Buddhism said no, there's no proof of that. Logically, it doesn't make sense. And even if all the explanation we do about reincarnation and everything else, that can be explained without the need to depend on a theory of soul or Atma. And so he came up with this thing called no self, that we are part of a process, that when certain conditions come together, we get born, and those conditions don't stay, we die. There's nothing permanent inside us because there's nothing permanent outside of you. So if there's nothing permanent in the world, how is possible for you to have something permanent inside of you? It's not possible because you're part of the world. So when he said that, he said in this context that eventually form will come out, but out of emptiness, and emptiness will go back or comes out with form. So both are similar. So this is what he sort of, I reckon, he explained about form emptiness using the premise of no self.
Yeah, and actually, I want to go a little further into this as well. The no self. I believe you in the book have it is it shunyata?
Shunyata, yeah.
And I think I've heard of it as shunya. Are those two similar concepts? Okay.
Yeah.
So before even learning of this concept, I'd had this experience on 3 different occasions. One was a completely unintentional experience, and I'd had a fall, had a bad hit, and I thought I had died. I'd fully dissociated. Went through a really significant journey that started off very difficult, feeling very just fully disconnected. It was kind of I think it's the most I can say. It felt like hell, being just totally disconnected from everything.
Oh my God.
Went into a place of actually some real significant suffering, and it made me think, anything we do to one another, like we all experience it if we're one. And then it went to kind of more neutral, and then it went into this beautiful kind of love connection, cross-cultural. It was very beautiful. And then at the end, I was at this point of just being fully connected to the universe. It was like being a part of the fabric of the world, and it was living and breathing. It was almost like this patchwork quilt that just kept expanding. And I remember in that moment, when I look back, there was no me. But I was fully present, fully alive to everything. And it was one of the most beautiful, freeing experiences. And I remember thinking, I don't want to go back, right? Like I didn't want to go back. And when I think about it now, my ego is like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be a part, like I want to be here, you know? But it was a really powerful experience. And then I've had 2 kind of smaller experiences. One was during a hypnosis session, and I remember just being, again, like my thoughts just stopped, and it felt like this kind of internal massage. It was really beautiful, things just falling into place. And then through conscious connected breath work, it's been the same, where it's just my brain stops. And it's like I don't have a concept of me, but I feel more alive and aware and present than in any other moments. And so I'm curious, I want to hear more from you about what this kind of 0 point is, what your experience is with it.
So shunyata. Shunyata was a concept developed later on in Buddhist philosophy. It was developed by a philosopher by the name Nagarjun, and he came with this treatise where he says that the nature of universe is shunya, empty, void. And so if the nature of the universe is empty, then nature of self also has to be empty, because you can't be different from the nature of the universe, right? And so he came up with this in this book called Madhyamaka, which actually means middle path in English, where he came with this theory of shunyata. And this and as a response to shunyata, much later, 600-700 years later, uh, we had Adi Shankaracharya, who came up with Advait Vedanta to counter the philosophy of shunyata. And so a very rich tradition in India, in Indian wisdom tradition, has been of debating among different philosophies. And so a big debate raged on for centuries between Shunyata and Advait Vedanta. A very, very beautiful period, I think, in time, uh, where people would engage in rich philosophical debates. And it was so exciting to witness all that. Now, how does this sort of compare with your experience? You want to know that, right? Isn't it? So, from what you described, I think, from what I understand, it's sort of a near classic case of near-death experience, where there is a consciousness that is witnessing even when the body is not fully conscious. So, we are more than a body. It basically, that is the conclusion one can draw, that we are more than a body. We are more than the physical self, because even when the physical self is not fully available, there is a part of you that is fully available, witnessing uh, to what is happening around you, right? So that what is witnessing is bigger than the physical body, and that is consciousness, right? This is what we believe is consciousness, is part of body, because to have consciousness, so out of body experiences and near death experiences are proofs that we are not just physical selves. They're just proofs of that, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, science has not been forthcoming in a big way in taking in this new knowledge in into its fold yet. It is still more comfortable with a materialistic viewpoint that consciousness is epiphenomenal. It is born out of your physical self, and it is a process that occurs in your brain magically, where you have a subjective experience, but there's a separate self which is not your physical self. So I think this is what the book is about, really. This book is about Converging Path, is about trying to marry this new understanding of consciousness and to challenge the the dogmatic insistence of science on everything material, and creating a conversation towards a new knowledge building where these evidences can be taken in, and knowledge can become richer, science can become richer. So whether one believes in Shunyata or one believes in Advait Vedanta, both say one thing for sure, that we are more than our physical self. We are more than physical bodies, right? There is a witness consciousness. So science has to sort of take into account.
Absolutely. So, and the way that you have written this book is you're bringing all of these different concepts together. And I know as I was going through it, finding that it's not something that you just read quickly. It's something that you have to really sit with
Yeah,
and
true.
contemplate. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, how would you recommend your readers relate to the book, to the material?
Yeah. So I'm guilty of writing the book hurriedly. I'm guilty of that because I was not in a situation where I had the luxury of time. I was on the bed, not moving around too much, frustrated and angry. So in that sort of mindset, I wrote the book, making a lot of assumptions about the reader that he would have known a few things already. Uh, the way to read, I would say this book is sipping it slowly and mulling over it. Uh, because a lot of things I have tried to incorporate as new sciences and revisiting the wisdom traditions. So I'll give an example of this. So in the new sciences, we now talk about uh, dark matter, dark energy, right? And now we see that matter is just 4% of universe. So what I grew up learning that everything is made of a matter. At a ripe old age, I'm told, no, no, so sorry. What you thought everything is made up of is just 4%. 96% is not matter. Right. So this is a new sciences, the new evidences that is coming. And when you reflect on the wisdom tradition, they may not have used the same vocabulary or the same language, but they did allude to something like this. They did allude that what is seen is a very small proportion of what is unseen. Right? So I'm not trying to draw a direct correlation between what the wisdom tradition said, but surely they learned something and they were keen to share the world they're learning. And maybe a time has come for us to sort of go back and understand what all was there to learn, which we sort of disregarded in some way. And why this book has to be sipped slowly is because he has to sort of try to balance or try to uh, learn what the wisdom tradition says and try to draw a parallel in his mind about what science is saying. Because the beauty of science is uh, it has rigor. Uh, wisdom tradition doesn't have, it has a personal rigor. Subjective rigor is there. But science has impersonal, objective, methodological rigor. And I think time has come where we have to get the best uh, ideas from science, especially the rigor of their work, and revisit the wisdom traditions and find a new body of knowledge. This is what I feel. And so one has to have a good understanding of science as well as a good understanding of wisdom tradition also. So it needs to be sipped in slowly. This is what I would say.
Yeah, beautiful. I think I do find it interesting, that spirituality is, I feel like there is a seeking of understanding the science behind it. And I'm not sure that that has fully shifted the other way of, science really kind of seeking the spiritual aspect as well, even if some of those things might even be ahead of its time. I'm actually wanting to hear kind of from both of you on this front, because it seems like so much of what science is discovering is in these ancient traditions. So I know you could speak to it much better than I can. Is that something?
I'm yeah, I have a few thoughts, no real conclusions. What I think is that this is not to diss anyone or to attack anybody, but let's take a look at Western science. Okay, a few years back, we saw the first camera. It was this huge thing. You put a blanket over your head and you have this light, and it used to go boom, and you take photographs. Then we saw it reduce, and now everyone's got high def cameras in their phones. You can have cameras in your button. We are watching it evolve. It's the same thing with aircrafts. We watched the Wright brothers fly their first flight. Now we're looking at rocket ships, spaceships. We're looking at progress, and we're seeing the progress in front of us. We're seeing how people in the West thought that the earth is flat, and how now they know it's round and it's changing, and they're evolving and evolving. And I love it. Love it. Eastern, or rather ancient Indian tradition, and again, this is not an attack on anyone, but this is my biggest gripe, is that they had this body of knowledge. Whether you take the Yoga Sutras, you take the Shiv Purans, you take the Bhagavad Gita, they had this huge body of knowledge, which was highly advanced. I think it's called the Sushmita Samhita or something, which talked about surgeries, anesthesia. You had taxation, which even accounted for evaporation thousands of years back. But then you don't see them building on that knowledge. You haven't seen, okay, yoga, highly advanced, chakras, highly advanced. But what have we done with that knowledge? We just sit back and say, yeah, we knew this 2000 years back. But then if you were so far ahead 2000 years ago, then you should be another 4000 years ahead by now. But my gripe is that we keep saying we knew this, but we haven't built on it. We're not growing like that camera. You're watching it go down into nothing and getting better and better. We don't see that with the sciences that were gifted to us. So my understanding, and I could be completely wrong here, is that there were highly advanced civilizations that lived here before us. Whether it's the Egyptians, whether it's Greek mythology, whether it's Indian mythology, most of it is now being proven to not be mythology, but to be history. There's lots of excavations, and archaeological digs that are popping up showing that most of those things actually existed. And now that knowledge is lost, and we are rebuilding on it. And my gripe with my own home country, India, is that we keep saying we knew this, but we haven't built on any of that. Like, if someone gave the Western world that huge camera 100 years back, look at how much progress they've made with it in the last 100. But you take the Yoga Sutras, you take all that, and what progress have we made? We are still stuck with those just saying that we knew it all. That's a massive complaint I have. It's a massive issue I have. Why haven't we taken it forward? So I'm quite pro the way Western science is growing. And I do wish that, as Prashant has used in his title, Converging Paths, I do wish that we would also get our act together and start moving forward, and the two paths can converge. We can find that ancient technology and build on it, and accelerate our growth together, not as two separate sciences. We should come together, converge, and that's my view on that.
Do you feel like, though, that, I mean, science would benefit from going into these deep places, like recognizing what is known from these traditions?
Yeah, I don't think there's any contradiction in the two. I believe that both are converging. There was a tendency for one to diss the other and say that, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Both sides did that.
It's true. Western definitely has done that.
Yeah, and so have the Indians on our ancient philosophies about Western science.
Yeah.
And now it's time to stop dissing each other and
start building together.
Build together. That's what I think. And I think
it's put the positives.
Yeah. I think it's
I am completely with you, 100% on that. Exactly my thoughts. You have beautifully articulated that. And I think that's the future. That when we sort of understand that there's a lot to learn from both of them. Science has done wonders. Indeed, no doubt about that. And these traditions, they have also done wonders. It's time to come together. And I think the new stream of knowledge that's coming about is in some way trying to build on each other. When we think of neuroplasticity, we think of epigenetics, we think about all these new streams of knowledge. I think it is trying to sort of make the first steps towards converging the paths. Science has an easy way to dismiss what they don't understand. They just dismiss it. For example, any treatment, they talk about placebo effect. So if they can't explain something good that has happened, they call it placebo effect. But the fact that it has happened, right? That means there is space in the treatment, in the medical treatment, for faith or for belief or for positivity, isn't it? So instead of dismissing it, why don't they adopt it and have sort of holistic care in a bigger way? But I think it's started, it's happening, and the future is, I think, the next frontier of knowledge is something called consciousness studies, where they'll have no choice but to bring the best brains and the best people in the spiritual traditions sit together and develop a new body of knowledge.
True, true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any more
That
questions?
almost seemed like such a beautiful wrap up that I'm sorry, but I did want to ask one more thing.
Yeah.
Coming from the Western side, and something that I find, it's not something that is cultivated so much over here, is that the practice of meditation, of silence, of we're so connected to everything. We're constantly busy, we're constantly doing, and recognizing how important it is to be in this space of silence, of quieting the mind. What do you recommend in terms of how to cultivate that?
I think I'll come back to my favorite topic called suffering. I think the trigger will be suffering. Because I think the world where we have entered into and the world I see in the foreseeable future, the impact of AI, it's now it's a cliched thing, but there's going to be huge disruption uh, everywhere, job markets, social structure, and it's going to lead to suffering, of course, because that is not something they anticipated. So then, what choice is there now? They'll have to seek solutions. They'll have to seek an answer. They'll have to seek a way out of this. And the only solution is finding the space between the thoughts, finding the stillness between the thoughts, and that's meditation. That's the only thing that will help them understand and give them meaning to their life. So I think the kind of tsunami that we are going to experience across the world, I think meditation is is going to be the savior for the world. So it's going to happen, whether we like it or not. I think.
Yeah, I agree. Meditation is happening and it's just going to increase. So, since you seem to have run out of questions, I want to share some thoughts that I have. First of all, I got to say that both of us enjoyed your book. Both of us.
Thank
You
you.
hit on such beautiful topics like entropy, karma, shunyata, suffering, the dark night of the soul. You've gone into beautiful topics, which I would encourage everybody to get into. Read the book. It's called Converging Paths by Prashant Nikam. Beautiful book. Here are some thoughts I have about our conversation so far. And I'm going back to your favorite topic, suffering. And I'm going back to where I was stuck on saying challenges instead of suffering. And I was trying to bridge the gap throughout the last 1 hour that we've been at this. And you also used a few terms which have stuck in my head and I'm still processing them, like when something happens which is completely unexpected, comes and hits you out of left field. And then you say, what did I do to deserve this? Or this is more pain than I deserve. I wonder, in all of this, how do you decide what amount of pain you deserve? I mean, do you have a measuring scale which says, oh, this is more than I deserve? Because my general approach is ooh, I've been knocked off my feet. This is horrible. What do I do? How do I get up? And the process of contemplation, figuring out why it's happened, where it's happened, what can I do about it? I don't call that suffering. I just call that deep contemplation. I call it part of my growth. And when I look back at some of my most painful times, even during those times, I found humor. I would just have sights set on what I needed to do and where I wanted to go. And somehow, yeah, of course, there was pain. Of course, there was a lot of challenges to overcome. But the word suffering seems to come from a sense of entitlement, that this is more than I deserve, and therefore I'm suffering. So I'd like you to address that. And where does gratitude fit in all this? How do you measure what you deserve?
Yeah, perfect. I think that's a very, very, very sharp and very, very important point. So, suffering does come with a sort of feeling of entitlement. It does come. Totally agree on that point. But that's because we are conditioned that way. So we are a product of our conditioning. If I was conditioned in a different way, maybe my responses would be very different. Right? So we are conditioned in a certain way to expect sort of a linear relationship with life. So if you study hard, you get good marks in your school. If you do well in your school, you'll get in a good college. If you do well in your college, you'll get a good job. If you do a good job, you'll get a good wife, you have a good family, right? This is the kind of linear relationship we are conditioned into. And so if a person does the input correctly, then he starts feeling entitled to expect the certain outcome or output in accordance with the conditioning. Right? Now, suffering happens because when it doesn't go in the desired path. So either we have to revisit the way we are conditioned, right? Either we have to revisit that from a very young age. We can tell children that don't expect a linear relationship with life. Life is non-linear. That could be a new way of sort of living life, and that probably would help reduce suffering or help reduce this basis of feeling entitled to the outcomes. Now, unfortunately, time has passed for me. I'm already old now. So I had to go through what I went through. But I think I suspect most people probably will, a majority of them will perhaps be conditioned the way I was conditioned. And maybe when you're younger, I think it is healthy, I think perhaps it's healthy to give a child a world they can make sense of. If you tell a child that study hard, but you never know what can happen, you may fail, or you may not do well, or you do may very well. I think he will not be able to sort of negotiate his his place in the world. So when the person is young, I think it makes sense to give him sort of a model which he can operate with. But then a time has to come where he has to voluntarily switch on to a new model of life, which is very non-linear. And that's the start of his spiritual life, I think. So unfortunately, I was conditioned this way, and I felt I did all the inputs correctly. So I need to have these outputs, and I wasn't getting that. So I was feeling suffering. Now, gratitude, right? You spoke of gratitude. Gratitude is also as natural for a person as suffering is. But when you're in gratitude, you don't go inwards, you go outwards. So when you're in gratitude, you're trying to share your happiness with the world. So it doesn't make you contemplative. It makes you expressive. So when you're expressing something, that expression comes out of gratitude, right? The book I wrote wasn't out of depression. It was out of gratitude, trying to find some meaning in my life, trying to find some higher purpose and what best I could do. Any creation is a form of gratitude. So gratitude, but it makes you express. So gratitude has a place, and I think gratitude is as natural to a person as feeling of suffering. So both I mean, that's how life is. Both are sort of and intertwined. Both come together. There are people who who uh, complain more than express gratitude, and there are people who express gratitude more than they complain. There could be variation of that. And maybe I am the one who complains more and the one who expresses more. But then I think I am the way I am.
I'm the entitled sufferer with you. Don't worry. It's okay.
But I think gratitude is such a natural thing. It's part of who you are. We all are here to express, and we would love to express in any form, and that is only out of gratitude. So it is as natural. But because you're not contemplative when you're doing that, so you don't talk about that. But expression is a proof of that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You had something to say?
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
Oh, no, I was just just rubbing your knee.
Yeah, this has been beautiful, and I strongly recommend your book to everybody, regardless of age. I also think, again, slight response to what you said. I think it's okay for kids to know that life is not fair. That's like expecting that a tiger won't eat you because you're vegetarian, and that's just not going to happen. Life hits you, and the sooner you're prepared for it, the better.
Yeah.
And yes, if you
I don't know at what age we have to wait until we have to give them that bitter pill. I'm not sure. I'm a father myself. I know how much I try to sort of protect my own child
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's the right age. And I feel life is a
That's true.
teacher by itself. And I think we don't have to worry. Life will teach them anyway. They have to anyways face life.
That is very true.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well said.
I agree.
Very well said.
Yeah, I think the developmental part is super important, right? And I was just thinking, maybe it's changing that relationship to failure, that it's okay. You can study hard and fail the test and it'll be okay. Like you'll succeed in other areas, and being able to support through that whole process. Yeah. So just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lovely conversation. I'm blown away by your depth of knowledge, and of course it shows. You've spent a lifetime of gathering experiences, real life experiences. I can't imagine what your experiences were as director of police, or as studying chartered accountancy, or getting an MBA from UK. Each of those would have made you so rich, and it all comes out in your book. It's fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And I'm honored to call you my friend. We have known you for so long. And thank you for this wonderful conversation. Absolutely delighted.
Wonderful talking to you and Kirstyn.
Yes, delighted to call you my new friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prashant. And see you soon, brother.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.